I've decided, actually, let's start a different way. A quick show of hands. Who went to Sunday school when they were growing up? Superb. Who remembers getting prizes for being at Sunday school for attendance or remembering Bible verses? What else did we win prizes for? A sword drill. So we've got a whole bunch of things. And I've realized as you grow up, probably one of the saddest parts about leaving Sunday school is not the stories, is the lack of prizes that are given out during a Sunday morning service by the pastor. So I'm going to change that this morning. I have prizes. Let's pretend I was organized and didn't send Laura to the shop this morning to get them for you. But we have prizes. What's going to happen is I'm going to show you a short video. The video is to raise awareness, and in the video, you're going to be asked a question, and I need to see who can get the right answer to the question, okay? So is everyone watching? Don't panic that the screens are a long way away. The harder it is for you, the more rewarding it will be when you get a bag of Jelly Babies to enjoy during the preach and eat them before they melt.
How many passes does the team in white make?
Okay, shout it out. Okay, I heard 13. Hands up if you said 13. Who said 13 first? Okay, Steph, Steve, and Anne, you can check. Steve, you need to go. Actually, I trust Steph more than I trust Steve. Okay, superb.
The answer is 13.
So, 13. I just wanted to show that bit of video to prove that it was right. Anyone notice anything else? Okay, don't tell everyone yet. Let's just watch it again and see if people can spot the other thing.
But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Okay. Hands up who genuinely saw the moonwalking bear. Okay, the sweets can go this side. Here we are. You might need to share them behind you because a few people there. I'm not convinced that the older generation did notice behind you, but we'll give it. Hands up if you didn't notice the moon. Okay, superb. Well, you'll be encouraged to know that that's not something that's a fault in your system. It's not a problem that you have going on. It's quite a common thing to happen, actually, that you have these things in your life that are there, and you miss them. It's got a real name. It's called inattentional blindness, or missing the obvious, if you want to take the scientific side out of it. Missing the obvious. It refers to those moments where we fail to see something, even though it's right before us, because we're so focused on something else. I'd set you a task. I wanted you to count the passes that the team in white made. Therefore, all many of you were focused on was following the ball and the white team's passes. That meant that you missed something that was right in front of you, even though it was incredibly obvious. A monkey moonwalking through the middle of the court should have caught your attention, but you were focused on something else. As I said, an incredibly common problem. Many of you will have experienced this, looking for your glasses while they're on top of your head. I won't ask you to show your hands. How many of you have gone looking for your car keys whilst carrying your car keys around the house because they also happen to be your house keys? I think there's a new one to add to this. It's a personal favorite of mine. How many of you are convinced it's not raining, even though it is, but your app has told you it's not? Missing the obvious. At some point, every single one of us would have been so focused on something that it has caused us to miss something else. Our attention has been so drawn into one area, one object, one thing, that we do not see what else is happening. It amazes me how easily our attention can be drawn in, how quickly we narrow our field of vision. Sometimes we become so convinced of what it is that we have chosen to see that we can miss everything else, even when maybe that's more obvious. You'll be pleased to know that this isn't just a modern day problem. It's not your iPhone or your laptop that's rotting your brain. This seems to be a genuine human issue. In fact, we see it biblically, and I'm going to ask Viv to come and read for us this morning from Luke, where we see exactly this issue played out. Thank you, Viv. There you are.
on the road to Emmaus. Now that same day, 2 of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. As they talked, they discussed these things with each other. Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" "What things?" he asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it is the 3rd day since all this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but couldn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was still alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see Jesus." He said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did the Messiah have to suffer all these things and then enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in the scriptures concerning himself. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as if he was going farther. But they urged him strongly, "Stay with us for it's nearly evening. The day is almost over." So he went to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together, and saying, "It is true, the Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon." Then the 2 who told what had happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them, and when he broke bread. Amen.
Thank you, Viv. On the surface, this is a pretty simple passage for us to engage with, and I'm sure one that many of us have read before. It's one of those passages that, in truth, though, is probably painfully relevant to many areas of our own lives if we just begin to spend a little bit of time peeling back some of the more obvious elements of it. We're going to move from the official term of inattentional blindness to that modern term of just missing the obvious from this point forward, because I think that gives us an understanding of what we see happening. 2 disciples are walking towards Emmaus. That's our fact. We know that. Jesus himself walks up alongside them. Another fact. They were talking about all that had happened to Jesus. That's what they were talking about. And Jesus walks up alongside them, and yet they fail to recognize it is Jesus with them. The one they are talking about is present with them, and yet they are failing to recognize him. They've clearly been present when the women returned from the tomb. They've stayed around long enough for Peter to get back and verify their account. They've chosen to go to Emmaus. And yet when Jesus is walking beside them, they were kept from recognizing him. Now, I won't deny there is a high possibility this was something spiritual, and there was a reason behind Jesus concealing his identity. But if we simply accept that fact and ignore all of the other things we see, it makes life far too easy for us. It's far too easy for us to dismiss this as quite simply Jesus concealing his identity. I think there is enough here for us to understand that there is more happening than just that. Because Jesus, whom they have followed, they have spent time with, they have seen do incredible things, is now present with them, and they did not see him. They are missing the obvious. Jesus was in their midst, physically in their midst, and they knew him. They knew him. They'd been present that morning with the other disciples as the women had gone early in the morning to anoint the body. They were present. They'd seen so many things along the journey with him. And yet they were so overwhelmed by everything else that was going on in that moment, that they completely missed that he was present with them. It's amazing, isn't it? The thing they yearned for the most was Jesus' presence back with them post the crucifixion. And yet they yearned it so much. They were distracted by everything else that went with that when he was there, they missed him. The thing they wanted the most was within touching distance, and yet they missed him. This is an incredibly difficult passage if we begin to fully engage with it, because I would go as far as saying all of us, if not, and I'll be generous to the 1% that just saw the gorilla moonwalking, 99% of us will have done this in our lives. We'll have done it in our own lives. We'll have experienced the reality on more than one occasion. They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" Overcome with grief and sorrow. Overcome with grief and sorrow, with their face downcast, these two disciples are sad, they are beaten, they are despondent, they are overwhelmed. This is an emotional moment. This is an outpouring of everything that they've experienced in those last few days. In fact, so painful are the emotions that they are journeying in this moment, they blind them from seeing Jesus in their midst. Their emotions blind them from seeing Jesus in their midst. I grew up, as many of you will have, on that poem named Footprints. That wonderful imagery of a man walking along a beach. When he gets to the end of his life, looks back and sees at times there was only one set of footprints and asks, why at the hardest times did you leave me? Why at the hardest times did you leave me? It's that painful truth that so often we allow our emotions to rule our lives. That we get so caught up in what it is that we feel that we stop seeing the obvious around us. We start to listen to them over all of the scents that we've heard. We start to see them more than all of the things that we've seen in the past. It's not always sorrow. I can get so mad, I can get so wound up that I stop seeing the clarity. I can be so downtrodden. Despair can feel so all-encompassing that I can genuinely believe that God has left my side. How many of us can relate to being so overwhelmed with emotions that we've genuinely questioned God's presence with us? These two disciples knew Jesus physically. They had spent time with his actual bodily form. And yet when he is beside them, they are so overwhelmed by the emotions they feel that they miss him. How much harder is it for us to get past some of those emotions and know the truth that God is with us? But to just call it emotions would be easy. How often have we been tempted by something we know is bad for us, so fixated on that one thing that we fail to hear that still small voice advising us against it? Feeling so overwhelmed by the choice we have before us that we've decided to ignore Jesus in our midst and make those irrational decisions. Believing that God was not present in those moments, whilst the truth is he was with us the whole time, longing for us to see him in the midst of those moments. As I said, it's not a new phenomenon. It's not something we struggle with because of modern technology. The Bible is littered with accounts of people being so fixated on early wealth, on wanting to win battles, that over the course of their time, especially the kings, they just lost sight of God. Humanity has a tendency to lose focus on that which is before them, to miss the obvious. It'd be really easy. It would be far easier, in fact, for this whole preach to be about the bad stuff. The bad emotions, the negatives, the bad choices we make. But the truth is, for some of us, we completely miss God when good opportunities come. How many of us are left with those choices, and they're not bad choices, but they become so central to us, so fixated on that choice that we completely forget to engage with what God might be doing. So good is that job opportunity. You've not asked the question, how will this have an effect on the rest of my life? It would be so much easier if life was black and white, but we can get so caught up in so many things, fixing our eyes on one thing, that we miss God in the midst of what is happening with us. And then, as Footprints reminds us, we find ourselves looking back on moments and wondering why it was that God had left us, when the truth is he was there the whole time. It was our focus that was missing. We have this, don't we? On the road to Emmaus, two of Jesus' followers, people like you and I, managing to walk alongside him without knowing he was there. If it wasn't so hot, I would love us just to take a chunk of time to look back on our own walks and consider the number of times where we know the truth is God was with us, but we have been so caught up in that moment, we questioned his very presence. For some of us, it's not that hard to do. I wonder what it is in your life that takes your focus away from Jesus. What is it that takes your focus away? What is it that draws your attention from him? What things are there in your life that leave you unaware of his presence with you? We all know it. On a Sunday morning, it's easy. The promise, I'll be with you always until the very end of the age. My gosh, we spout so much of it from the front here. And it's an incredible promise of God. And yet there are moments in each of our lives where we can dismiss that promise because something is so clear in front of us, everything else becomes a blur. The promise of God that he will not abandon us is left to be questioned because I'm overwhelmed with grief. That lustful desire is so strong, I cannot see the God who has promised to be with me on every moment of my journey. I feel so downtrodden by the situation that I begin to question whether God loves me despite the truth of his son going to the cross for me. It is dangerously easy to lose sight of the obvious in front of us when we allow these other things to blur our vision. And that's where these two disciples find themselves. They have walked with Jesus before this moment. Those of you who run, they would have known his gait. They would have understood the way that he conducted himself, the things they did. These were disciples. Their one role in life was to mimic Jesus. Their desire was to be just like him in the way he held himself, the way he spoke. Everything he did was their desire. And yet when he was beside them, still being Jesus, they missed him. And yet there is a saving grace thread through this story that's so easy to miss. The saving grace in this moment is good habits. Good habits. Good habits formed over time allowed them to have a kink in that moment of pure grief. In the midst of confusion, of pain, of lust, of greed, of anything else that leaves us feeling far from God, I encourage you, lean into the good habits that you can form in the good times. They urged him strongly, stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over. So he went in to stay with them. Despite everything that was going on, the grief, the overwhelming emotions that they felt that meant they missed Jesus, they leaned into the good habit of hospitality. They knew it was not good to leave this gentleman to walk these roads alone. So if you imagine everything else that's going on, retelling of the story, listening to Jesus' account of everything that was going on in his life, that some of it they'd been a part of, they're missing Jesus, and yet still they know good habits. Good habits. There is clarity in the practice that they had clearly inherited of hospitality. I wonder what would be your good habit. If you don't have one, this is a good opportunity to pick one up. But what would be your good habit? For some of you, it will be the discipline of reading your Bible. For some of you, you found the idea of reading the Bible together for the year in the New Testament an incredible challenge, and you're days behind. But for others of you, that habit, that discipline, at times it's almost felt ritualistic just to get your Bible in the morning and read the passage, but it is a good habit. And I encourage you on those days when it feels pointless and when it feels like God is a long way from you, do not lose the good habit of picking up the text. Things learned and developed, disciplines applied in the good times will hold you strong in the bad times. For others of you, it's that discipline to pray, a commitment to make sure you spend time every single day praying. I used to feel bad because I'd get to the end of the day and not have prayed much. In fact, there was times growing up where I hadn't prayed for the whole day, so I'd pray before bed. The number of times I fell asleep. The good thing was I prayed the next morning to apologize for having fallen asleep the night before. But the discipline of prayer, even when sometimes it feels like they're just bouncing off of the ceiling, is such a good habit to have. That in those hard times, when everything else seems so bleak, when decisions seem overwhelming, to have that discipline, that baseline habit of prayer will help. It will help to have good habits. The thing that these disciples had in amongst everything else was a good habit. Hospitality was important to them. Others of you reading and praying can be a challenge, but you love music. Love to listen to worship music. I encourage you, develop that good habit. Have it as a default. When you get up in the morning and you go downstairs and you ask Alexa to do everything else in your house, just ask her to play some worship music. The difference it can make. It's easy on the good days when the sun is shining and it's not too hot by that time in the morning. It's an easy habit, but on those dark days, in those hard moments, are we still willing to allow that good habit to connect us back in to the reality that God is present? We're not ushering him in. This isn't some little kind of secret I'm letting you in on to try and coax God back into your life. It's to open our eyes to the reality. The gorilla was in the video the first time. We just failed to see it. God hasn't left you. These aren't tricks. These are just ways of us remembering his presence with us. Good habits formed in good times will hold you firm when things are difficult. I encourage you to invest in them. I encourage you to pour time into them. That good habit these disciples had formed in the moments when things were carefree, when things were smooth, when Jesus was close, served them well in this difficult moment. Remember, these are his disciples, people who knew him. And yet, even if they can miss him in amongst the grief that they face, if they could feel a physical absence of Jesus, even though he was present, it tells us something, doesn't it? It tells us that sometimes that focus they had on Jesus' absence meant they missed his presence. So fixated on the lie that he wasn't with them, they completely missed his presence. I've done it. Please hear me. This is a preach for me as much as anyone else in this room. The number of times I've bought into the lie that God is not there, I've convinced myself that he's not, despite the truth he has been the whole time and always will be. Good habits go a long way. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and he began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. Good habits paved the way for this stranger to join them for the evening as they ate together. And this moment occurs as a result of their good habits. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him. Remember the words that Jesus spoke to the 12 around the table when this feast was first presented to them. Luke 22:19, he took bread, gave thanks and broke it and gave it to them saying this is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. Do this in remembrance of me. There will be times when I am no longer physically with you. So I want this meal to serve as a reminder of who I am, of what I've done, and that promise to come of the Spirit to be with you always. These two disciples have walked with Jesus by their side as he has opened the scriptures for them, explained the prophecies, brought all of this thinking together for them, and yet it is when they are at the table When Jesus brings before them that command to remember me whenever you do this, that their eyes are opened. Good habits formed in easy times will serve us well during the difficult times. This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. The table is a precious reminder of Jesus. It draws their and our focus back to him, to what he's done for us. It realigns our hearts with his heart. In the midst of despair, it reminds us we are loved. That's what the table does. In the midst of despair, it reminds us we are loved. In the moments of desire, it reminds us that we already have all we could ever want in him. An incredible reminder to us that we have all we could ever desire when we have relationship with him. In doubts, in worries, in joys, and all that's between, the table is a call to remind us that Jesus is present in all of it. God is with you. I can say that with 100% of certainty, whatever it is that you are facing today, and it will be different for every person in this room. God is with you. The crazy thing, out there is 19 down. God's with them. There's people joining us online who can't be in the building. God is with them. God is with you. That promise is true. Whether we see it or not does not affect that truth. And the table serves as that reminder. It's a good habit. I encourage you, a shameless plug. This afternoon at 4:00, we're coming to the table to pray and break bread together. You know what? If you don't feel worthy to come, come. Serves as an incredible reminder of what Jesus has done for each of us. A reminder that he loves us, that he is with us. We began this morning with that realization that we can be so concerned with what it is that we are looking at that we miss all that is happening around us, that inattentional blindness. What is it that's so front and center in your life that it takes your eyes from Jesus, takes your attention away from him, leaves you worrying that he is not with you? As I close, I want us to consider this, because there's so much more than just that moment that Jesus reveals himself to them. There's a wonderful truth. I've preached other sermons on it, but I think we see it here. As I close, I want you to listen to how this scenario plays out. They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together and saying, "It is true, the Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon." Then the two told what had happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke bread. An encounter with Jesus can change everything. Can change everything. For these two, it changed the direction they were walking. It changed the plans they had. It changed their understanding of what Jesus was doing. Everything changed because they had this encounter with Jesus. So what is it that's stopping you from seeing his presence with you? Because that encounter is available daily for each of us. We don't need to wait until next Sunday to encounter Jesus. Daily we have this opportunity to live life to the fullness that Jesus promised us, but so often we miss him with us. An encounter with Jesus, that reminder he is with you, that he loves you, that he is for you, can change everything. From emotions to trajectory. Everything. Friends, the question is, do we yearn for that encounter? Or are we suffering with that inattention blindness when it comes to our faith? Do we yearn for that encounter? It's not in my notes. Wasn't going to use it, but I spoke this morning as I closed to Viv in the kitchen. And we've obviously talked this week about this passage and kind of just all that it says. And there's something in it that's very easy to miss. And I'm going to pray for us in a moment, but I think it's important for us to hear this. Jesus doesn't have long left on earth. There is a whole lot of things I am sure he is desperate to communicate to the mass gathered disciples. And yet, in a wonderful physical enactment of the prodigal son and the lost coin and the lost sheep, Jesus chooses to spend his time on the two who are lost, who are despondent, who are overwhelmed by the grief in the moment. Had he appeared to the 11 and those gathered, those two would have found their way to Emmaus and may never have known, may never have been present at Pentecost because they were so overcome by what they were feeling, but yet Jesus went after the two. If you feel like you are lost and you are wandering aimlessly, please hear this. Jesus is for you and he will come and find you.